Personal identity is arguably one of the most familiar philosophical crises. We grow up wondering who we are, and what it means to be so, never truly finding the answer. John Locke is famous for his somewhat radical work on this subject. Locke rejected the Cartesian theory that one's soul accounts for one's own personal identity, instead proposing the concept of consciousness. Something between the soul and the body that remains constant, as opposed to the brain and the body which are forever changing. Locke thus concludes that personal identity is not in the brain, nor in the soul, but within our consciousness. Locke argues that consciousness can be transferred from one soul to another, and that personal identity is transferred along with it. Locke poses the question, if the same substance which thinks be changed, it can be the same person, or remaining the same, it can be a different person. He concludes that consciousness can be transferred from one substance to another. This infers that even when the soul is changed, consciousness remains the same, meaning that personal identity is maintained throughout the process. However, Locke also believes that the soul and the thinking substance are not enough to account for, and are not necessary for a personal identity over time. He claims that consciousness can be lost, even when the soul and the substance remains the same, like when someone suffers loss or absence of memory. When this happens, the soul remains, but there is a different person present. Locke also makes a distinction between the meaning of man and that of person, making it possible for the same person to be in a different body and yet still be the same person. But if personal identity is based on consciousness, and if only oneself can be aware of one's own consciousness, how can anyone else know for certain if someone is responsible for their actions, and thereby be certain that they are justified in holding this person accountable? Well, Locke believes that in actuality we are only responsible for the decisions we consciously make and the acts that we consciously commit. This ignites interesting deliberations on the subject of accountability. One in particular, which we can almost all relate to a little too well, is the discussion on drunkenness. Let's all take a moment to imagine, or indeed recall, a night where you would have had one too many drinks of alcohol and you happen to do or say something you would never normally do or say. According to Locke, it would not be you who did or said those things, and therefore the blame or responsibility would be absolved. This is certainly quite controversial, and though I'm sure many of us would like to be able to not be held responsible for certain atrocities we may have committed while in an inebriated state, it does seem like an easy way to avoid blame. What do you think? Was Locke onto something here? Should we only be held responsible for the things that we are conscious of doing? Are our drunken mistakes that easily absolvable?